everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank Margarese for the invitation to come here and moderate this panel. As Margarese has said, I'm representing Apex Brazil, which is the Brazilian Trade and Investment Promotion Agency. We are linked to the federal government of Brazil, and we have two main missions. One is to promote Brazilian exports abroad, and the other one is to attract investments to the country. So I am the investment coordinator in Apex Brazil, and we've been working with this venture capital private equity industry since 2009, fostering our local GPs to fundraise money abroad, and also incentivizing these venture capitalists, US venture capitalists, to see our market, to see our opportunities in Brazil, and to invest and help develop our ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, and our companies in Brazil. So today I'm here to moderate this panel. I'm very pleased to be here, and so let's get started. Well, first of all, I'd like to each of you to make a short introduction about your funds, about your thesis of investment. What are you guys what you have been doing the past years, and tell a little bit what are your objectives. So I'll start with Guilherme.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and thanks BayBrazil for the invitation. Very pleased to be here. So my name is Guilherme Servieri. I'm from eBricks Ventures. It's one of the leading venture capital funds from Brazil. We invest mostly in Brazil at this point. We are in our first fund. We're probably going to launch the second fund next year. We have 15 companies in our portfolio, and we believe Brazil still has many opportunities for companies disrupting the local market and tackling the so many inefficiencies that we believe that Brazil still has. And we see that an entrepreneurial mindset will be the key to solve these issues. And we mainly focus on companies trying to disrupt these value chains that at this point are showing some of the inefficiencies right now. So we have a team there with 6 people, led by Pedro Melzer, which is our managing director. So thank you again for having us, and thank you all the speakers here for sharing.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank BayBrazil again for the invitation to be here and be part of the panel. My name is Andre Levi with DCM Ventures. DCM Ventures is a global venture capital firm headquartered here in Silicon Valley, but with offices in Beijing, Shanghai, and Tokyo. We have about $3 billion under management, and we are in our 7th fund group over our 20-year history. We have about 125 companies in the portfolio currently, and that's counting. So we're Series A investors primarily, but we have room to invest in all different stages of the company. Hello, everybody.
Hello, I'm Antoine Colasso. I work with Valor Capital Group. We are a group that is focused on Brazilian investing. We invest in Brazilian companies as well as foreign companies that want to enter the Brazilian market. We are broad-based tech investors, except for biotech, really. Other than that, we look at everything where there is a theme in the Brazilian market where we feel that there's an opportunity for technology to really innovate and create change. We have about 25 companies in our portfolio right now, and are still very actively investing and looking at opportunities. Very excited about the Brazilian market. We have offices in New York. I'm out here in Silicon Valley, and then my partner's in Rio. So we try to cover all our bases that way.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Renata Quintini. I'm a partner at Felicis Ventures. We're based here out of Palo Alto, but we look at technology and innovation on a global level. We have about $220 million under management across 3 institutional funds. We've invested in over 150 companies. We've had 55 of them exit, including 3 IPOs recently. And we have companies out of 12 different countries. Brazil is one of them. And this year was a very special one for us because our first international company, Shopify, went IPO in the New York Stock Exchange and really proved that global winners can come from everywhere. So we pay attention to companies that are either reinventing markets that exist or technology entering and really creating opportunities like never before. So think of robotics, bioinformatics, drones, so on and so forth. So happy to be here and to share our excitement for investing in technology.
Hi everybody, good morning. My name is Manuel Lemos from Redpoint Ventures. Before, I would like to thank Margarese for putting this great event together. We are an early stage fund focused in Brazil. We have two very strong partners here in Silicon Valley, Redpoint Ventures and eVentures, so we're part of this big global platform that those guys are building. We're basically doing investments. Our mandate is LATAM, but so far we have been doing like 25 investments in Brazil. We're very active. This year's been a great year for us, despite all of the turmoil. We're here basically to support everything that Margarese is doing, talk to our partners, our friends here, and to learn and share a little bit with you.
Okay, good. So after the introduction, I want to raise a point that Manuel has just touched. One thing that we in Brazil we are always asked is about how the current economic and political instability has affected business in Brazil and investments more specific. So I want to throw this question to our panelists and to see in practical terms how this situation in the country has affected business, investments, and the growth of Brazilian companies. So I'll start this time with Manuel and come around.
Well, first of all, we believe that crises are a good moment for investment. So we're really bullish. We believe that's the time to do a lot of very interesting investments at good price and things like that. But when we look to our thesis and what we believe that technology is going to be able to do for Brazil, we believe that the efficiency that technology brings, especially in a country with so big problems, so deep problems to be solved, that's going to be there forever, independent of macro. So when you look to what's happening right now, if we compare our small island of tech investments and things like that, we haven't suffered with the crisis yet. Maybe a few of the businesses that are more connected to retail, they're suffering somehow, but if they're bringing efficiency to the table, that's the moment for them to sell more and actually grow at faster rates. In the end, if you look, of course, that the exchange rate is going to help on pricing and things like that, but the reality is that we cannot time exchange rate. So the best thing we can do is to keep consistently investing, spread our investments over time, and that's the way to go. So we hope it keeps like that. We hope that the situation improves, but so far things are being really good for internet investments.
Yeah, anyone else wants to make a comment on this issue, on this topic?
So we invest in companies global. We don't have a mandate to just invest in Brazil, so we actually have to compare opportunities across everything we see. And of course, the currency, if you had investments before, it's something that hurts you where you weren't expecting, because all of a sudden, call it 30 to 40% of the value just evaporates overnight. And it's just very hard to have growth to sustain, because usually when these things happen, you're having a slower moment on the ground as well, so it kind of hits you twice. So it's harder to kind of recoup from that. But having said that, it's a great time to buy investments in Brazil, and also a great time to get exits, because this is the thing that's been missing. It's really proof points that entrepreneurs have gotten better, businesses have gotten better, and are actually worth something in the end. And this is a great time to actually spur that exit cycle to get more money back into the system and get people motivated. I've seen founders get so much braver over these past years, and actually people thinking ahead. Even the companies that I've invested in, they saw, okay, there's going to be a downturn. What can we proactively do to continue to grow and continue to grow healthily? So reinventing the model, reinventing the way you get revenues proactively, which was great to see. So I think this is a great opportunity to hit that one proof point of the exits and make sure that people continue to be incented to stay in tech, not because of the downturn, oh, maybe I'll go back to stability of consulting or Petrobras and whatnot, because we're seeing great talent flow into Brazil tech.
Yeah, I think if you looked at it compared to 3 years ago when everything was booming, I think what it's forced entrepreneurs to do is really focus on their business, focus on cash burn, and focus on really building a sustainable model, which I think is really important in general for the ecosystem. I think it's actually, in some ways, a very good thing for the ecosystem in Brazil, again, which remember is very young. And so you need these times of kind of strain to actually focus people to really focus on what's most important, how to really build a business in a proper way, and really focus your spending instead of just spending on everything, marketing, unlimited money to spend on marketing. You focus, you target, and you have to watch your metrics. And I think that's actually a very good thing right now. And we're seeing, as has been said, we're seeing some of the best companies right now come out because you've got really passionate people who are really focused on their businesses.
I'll just add that, if you look today at the current environment in Brazil from a business perspective, the ones that are well capitalized have been able to fundraise probably 6 months ago. They're going to be in a much better shape than the ones that are going to have to go fundraising, because not everybody's going to have the risk appetite to invest in Brazil in the current instability that we have, both on the political side, but also with the roller coaster of the economic downturn starting to go down. So I think that you're going to see some of the winners coming out at the end, and that's going to be very positive for the ecosystem. But I agree with my fellow colleagues here that this is going to be a good time to see how the entrepreneurs are able to manage their business. We've seen crises before, at least I've seen it in my lifetime. We'll see if this new generation that's seen the very first severe crisis in Brazil from an economic standpoint is going to be able to manage that, specifically if it is a first-time entrepreneur, how that entrepreneur is going to be able to manage the business, manage the burn, and be successful in the journey.
Well, I agree with my colleagues here, and I believe that this is just just one more point in the learning curve for the ecosystem. So I think it's in some ways positive, as was mentioned before, for entrepreneurs to be more focused on what is important for the business. But also I think it raises a question on how do we tackle the problems in Brazil? We've seen that this crisis was mostly generated by the government with its bad investment and bad spending. And I think the answer is that we must, as a country, rely more on entrepreneurship, on innovators, and on doing business in a smarter way and facilitating for business to flourish. So I think it's a moment for the country as a whole to reflect and see what the country wants for itself for the future, because we cannot rely anymore on big companies or government companies. It's time for us to invest more in entrepreneurs and in innovation. And I also believe that it's a moment to be consistent. As Manuel was saying, we were not overly excited when things were booming, and we are not depressed now when things are not happening as we were wishing. So I think it's a moment to be consistent, keep looking for the best deals, for the best entrepreneurs, and keep investing in the ecosystem, because I think this is our job here and our responsibility as investors to keep calm and keep supporting the entrepreneurs in the ecosystem.
Okay, good. Well, let's just, Margarita told me that the audience is also wants to make questions. So I'm gonna do a few more questions to our panelists, and then please feel free to just jump into the discussion and make your own questions. But I'll ask you right now about exactly the opportunities that you are looking into. What are the sectors in Brazil? Although the economy is not growing, we know that there are some segments that have a good growth, even though the current situation. We did a study with ABVCAP, which is the Brazilian Association for Venture Capital Private Equity, and we have, for example, like the internet segment in Brazil. E-commerce has raised its revenues from $6 billion in 2007 to $38 billion in 2014. Number of e-consumers have grown up from 10 million in 2007 to 51 million in 2013. So the numbers show that there is a huge increase in internet use in Brazil. We are more than 100 million users, and we still have 200 million population. So there are a lot of growth potential still ahead of Brazil. So this is one of the sectors that we highlighted in these studies. We also did some research agri-tech and healthcare. So what are the sectors that you are working on and the ones that you feel that have better chance to growth in the near future? What are the trends also in Brazil?
Well, as I was saying before, I think Brazil still offers many opportunities, and you were bringing numbers here that just show that the people in Brazil are still going online. Consumers are buying more and more online, so the market is still growing. Of course, we cannot put our heads in the sand and say there is no crisis or no turmoil. But I think there are still great opportunities in Brazil, and some sectors prove that. You mentioned healthcare. It's a big sector in Brazil, growing a lot. It's not being affected by the crisis. Not only the offline market is growing, but the online is growing even faster in healthcare. If we talk about education, if I'm not wrong, like 45 or 50% of population still doesn't have a high school degree, whereas in the US it's over 95%. If we talk about ag tech, I believe that Brazil has like double the size of a beef cattle herd, while the US it's double the size of the US, while the US generate double the profits. So we see many opportunities in Brazil. Healthcare is one space that we really like and we're really into. Also, ag tech is one space that we are paying attention. It's booming here in the US. We've seen the winning the Battlefield TechCrunch was an ag tech company. So those are two spaces that we believe in a lot. And also education, as I mentioned, is a big market in Brazil. So if inefficiencies are still there in Brazil, and infrastructure is getting better and better, so I think there are still many opportunities, and eBRICS is paying attention, especially to the three of these, to these three sectors. And also I would add, lastly, fintech also is a great and hot space in Brazil.
So I'll be brief. DCM, we don't have Brazil as a core strategy. We have made investments in Brazil, so I'll just comment on the generic from my understanding of the market.
When do you think that DCM can go to Brazil? So this
So
is the question. This is what we
need
want
to figure out the
do.
time zone, because that's we operate as a one fund, one firm, and so our global meetings happen at 4 p.m. on Monday, which has the U.S., China, and Japan online. So put Brazil into that picture. When it's a 6-hour difference, that becomes a little bit more problematic. So, but in any event, I think that the opportunities that you see, as Guilherme mentioned, is you have opportunities throughout different sectors. I personally like the mobile sector. I think the challenge that you're going to have in Brazil is how you monetize the mobile user in Brazil. And that's, I think, whoever figure out that form is going to make pretty good money because the user base is just huge. So I'll best to the ones that have invested in.
I think you've touched on a lot of the ones that I would say anyways. I think, as you said, there's a lot of large markets in Brazil, large inefficient markets. I think the other one I'd add is logistics. I think there's a lot of areas where technology can just improve what's happening already in the market. And so we're looking at the same things that Guilherme mentioned: education, health and wellness. Beauty space is very large in Brazil. One of our most effective companies is in the gym space, and which is Brazil has the second most number of gyms in the world outside the U.S. So, these are areas where you'll notice that Brazil has just enormous markets, and therefore and it's ripe with inefficiency, so technology helps. So I think Guilherme mentioned a lot of them already.
I mean, adding to what our friends Red said, there are a few things. If you look to Brazil today, the amount of problems is everywhere. So opportunities everywhere, and they are huge. So that's the good thing. So when you look into big verticals, we're looking, of course, for fintech, SMBs, education, health, and things like that. And you look across of that on all different platforms. Let's say SaaS, understanding SaaS, it's a platform. So in all these different areas. Mobile is another thing, and maybe IoT is going to be the next big thing. When you look into mobile, what we'd like to say inside of a red point is that Android penetration, smartphone penetration is not going to wait for a June. They are not going to wait for the crisis to go. That's going to happen. The behavior change is there, and that's probably the last big wave of change that we're going to have in this space. So if you want to do something, that's the moment to do that. So we're looking to everything on this space. And I believe that we decide not to have any specific focus, because that will be kind of a risk for us, because the best way to look at that is to look all the opportunities in the internet space. So I believe opportunities are everywhere, and we just need to find the right teams to empower it.
So I want Renata, who has brought this up before, to share with us what are her thoughts about exiting Brazil and what Felicis has managed or is planning to do ahead.
I think there really hasn't had a lot of liquidity in Brazil recently, be it IPO, be it private. But the interesting thing that Brazil has is twofold. Number one, Brazil has a pretty mature private equity business as well that can be a very healthy avenue for exits. If you just look at what private equity is buying, they can buy your business. And Brazil also has pretty mature public companies in certain areas as well. Even though technology is not very represented in the Brazilian IPO market, there are media companies, education companies, healthcare companies, etc., that they are going to be looking for other avenues of growth, and technology is the perfect foray for that. And then there's a third advantage that Brazil has, which is Brazil is not an easy place to operate in. Legislative system is different across a bunch of states, logistics, etc. So the ability for an international entrant to just come and eat your lunch is close to zero. So as Amazon of Brazil is not going to be Amazon, it's going to be somebody else, and Amazon needs to buy that. And that applies to many, many other areas, right? So the zero of Brazil is Conta Azul, is not zero. So on and so forth. So keep playing to these areas where Brazil has a natural advantage, and Brazilians have a natural advantage. I'm so glad that the copycats are gone, for the most part. Because there used to be this wave 5 years ago that folks wanted to be founders, and they were like, oh, there's this company in the US, let me start that for Brazil, and they would fail. But the idea is Brazil has its own problems and its own opportunities, and to just build companies for Brazil, that's a great way to go. And look for, okay, the way that we like to think about it is if you're building a consumer company, where do consumers spend their money? Right? Everybody spends it on education, spends it on health, on looking good and feeling good, right? So these things are not going away, and food and beauty, and it's pretty simple, right? And if you look at the class D, whatever, that migrated to medium class, you just look at the research. What are the first things you buy? It's health, education, a smartphone, and so on and so forth. And so where money is going is a good way to put your money. And on the business side, if you can be close to things that generate a lot of revenue or reduce a lot of cost, right? Because then it doesn't matter what's happening with the macro. You're doing something that is so critical that people are not going to stop buying your product. And then things just kind of come into play, and this is a perfect, the price now is, for international buyers, is maybe like a third cheaper. So it's a great time to keep doing biz dev events, understand what's in the minds of Amazons, Googles, Facebooks, eBay, Zero, whatever, and what Brazil fits in the roadmap, right? And just really educate them. And operating in Brazil has its challenges, but we figured it out. Don't be so scared, and make Brazil a priority in their agenda. Because, we talk to them, they want to go to Europe or Australia or other places. Make them want to go to Brazil first and have, here, come partner with me and I'll lead the way.
Anyone else want to comment on this?
That's maybe the most common topic across tables with VCs and things like that. We're totally in line with what Renata said, but there is another thing that is, there are a lot of exits happening in Brazil that people are not talking about. Not billion-dollar exits, but if you talk on multiples of hundreds of millions, they're happening. The difference is that usually they don't talk about it. So we saw Bematech being sold right now. We saw, let's say, GetNet and things like that. And there are a few others that happen. So what we're trying to do with Insper and some people there in Brazil is try to map that because that's something that we'd like to expose more to the people. There are some reasons why entrepreneurs don't talk about that. They're afraid of security. There are a lot of things that they don't want to tell, that they sold their companies and things like that. But of course, that's maybe the place that we have more space to improve. But there is an interesting change happening in the space right now, which is the arrival of corporations. They're looking more and more into startups. So you think what Itaú is doing, what TOTUS is doing, and things like that. We believe we're going to see more and more of those M&As. IPO, I'm not that excited about that in Brazil for a long time, but I believe we're going to see improvements on that as well.
I'll just add one point to the corporations. It's one of the things that we've seen happen in Brazil, and I have first experience of this, is the big Chinese technology companies arriving in Brazil looking for opportunities to make acquisitions of Brazilian companies to grow in their market as well. So you have the US, big guys going in there and looking, but you also have now the new phenomenon of the Chinese coming in and looking for that market too.